class. Today you're going to be reading two biographies about Theodore Roosevelt and the letter that Roosevelt wrote to his children. You will use what you've learned about analyzing points of view and accounts of the same topic. I'd like you now to turn to each other and talk about why it is important to analyze what you read and why it is important to know your point of view. You have 30 seconds. Go. Okay, so as we read together, you should remember and look closely at the accounts to analyze the points of view that are expressed. Look for key words and think about what it is you're reading and what that point of view is going to be.
Teddy Roosevelt was one of the most powerful presidents of the United States. From his active lifestyle to his commanding leadership, Roosevelt was a strong man. It is surprising that his energetic man was a sickly child. A boy, he suffered from asthma, a condition that makes breathing difficult, especially during exercise. Yet, Roosevelt overcame this challenge. He went on to pursue a vigorous lifestyle. Before becoming president, Roosevelt demonstrated his physical strength and courage during the Spanish-American War. He led the Rough Riders, cowboy-like soldiers who rode horses into battle. As president, Roosevelt used his war experience to build up the U.S. military so America could play a more active role in world politics. He described the United States as needing to speak softly and carry a big stick when relating to other nations. Under the Monroe Doctrine, Roosevelt gave the United States power to control Latin America and protect it from Europe. He oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, improving commerce between the Atlantic and the Pacific. Roosevelt led the United States in its position as a world leader. In contrast to his public life, Roosevelt's home life was relaxed and fun-loving. He and his wife Ethel had 6 children: Alice, Theodore, Kermit, Edith, Archibald, and Quentin. He was an adoring and playful father. He and his children would romp all over the White House, even having pillow fights in the halls. He drew silly pictures and wrote letters to his family when they were separated. He shared his thoughts, delights, and dreams with them. He cared deeply about the environment and taught his children to do the same. Together, they enjoyed taking hikes, riding horses, and collecting animals. Theodore Roosevelt spoke softly at home, lovingly devoted to his family. He carried a big stick in the world, vigorously devoted to his country.
The next story we're going to read is from Theodore Roosevelt, an intimate biography. The words we need to know in this story are promenade and punctually. This is an excerpt from the biography of Roosevelt, Ambassador of France, description of the hike with the president. So this is something we should look closely on the point of view and how our point of view from Theodore's eyes might be different from, say, a first-hand or a second-hand point of view.
Today, President Roosevelt invited me to take a promenade with him this afternoon at 3. I arrived at the White House punctually, in afternoon dress and silk hat. To my surprise, the President soon joined me in a tramping suit with knickerbockers and thick boots, and soft felt hat much worn. 2 or 3 other gentlemen came. We started off at what seemed to me a breakneck pace. We were soon out of the city. On reaching the country, the President went pell-mell over the fields. He did not follow a road or path, always on, straight ahead. I was much winded, but I would not give in, nor ask him to slow down. At last, we came to the bank of a stream. It was rather wide and too deep to be forded. I sighed relief, because I thought that now we had reached our goal and would rest a moment and catch our breath before turning homeward. But judge of my horror when I saw the President unbutton his clothes. I heard him say we had better strip so as not to wet our things in the creek. Then I, too, For the honor of France, remove my clothing, everything except my lavender kid gloves. The president looked at these as if they, too, must come off. I quickly said, with your permission, Mr. President, I will keep these on. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing if we should meet ladies. And so we jumped into the water and swam across.
Time to think about how the text that you read has shown different points of view. Based on the titles and the photographs, what do you predict the passages are about that is different? What questions do you have about the different text? Please turn to your neighbor at a voice level 1 and talk to your neighbor about how these two texts are different and how the point of view is different between the two texts. Go. Okay, I'd like us to come back together. Some things that we should check for understanding. I'm sorry, please excuse my dog. Then first is, who was Theodore Roosevelt? When you think about this text, you should know who was Theodore Roosevelt. Next is, why was his energy as an adult surprising? Think back to the first story we read and think about why the energy he had was surprising. Okay, we are about to begin reading our next passage. Please turn the page and we will begin. Reading Speak Softly and Carrying a Big Stick. Theodore Roosevelt and an Intimate Biography. Why might you infer that Roosevelt had courage and strength? Provide 2 details to explain why you believe Theodore Roosevelt might have courage and strength. In the meantime, while we do that, I'd like you also to think about this type of text. I do see a date, which is January 6, 1903, and I see the type of text starts with a dear. When a text starts with that, you know that this type of text is going to be a letter. So we are going to begin reading this letter, and I want you to think about how the text structure affects the text we read.
Dear Kermit, we felt very melancholy after you and Ted left, and the house seemed empty and lonely. But it was the greatest possible comfort to feel that you both really have enjoyed school and are both doing well there. Tom Courts is certainly the cunningest kitten I have ever seen. The other evening the next Speaker of the House, Mr. Cannon, came to call on me. He is an exceedingly solemn, elderly gentleman with chin whiskers. He certainly does not look to be of playful nature. He is a great friend of mine, and we sat talking over what our policies for the session should be until about 11 o'clock. When he went away, I accompanied him to the head of the stairs. He had gone about halfway down when Tom Courts strolled by. His tail was straight up and very fluffy. He spied Mr. Cannon going down the stairs. Jumping to the conclusion that he was my playmate escaping, he raced after him. He grasped him by the leg, the way he does Archie and Quentin when they play hide-and-seek with him. Then, loosening his hold, he tore downstairs ahead of us. Mr. Cannon eyed him with iron calm and not one particle of surprise. It is just after lunch. Delaunay is cutting my hair while I dictate this to Mr. Loeb. I left Mother lying on the sofa and reading aloud to Quentin. He, as usual, has hung himself over the back of the sofa. I see this as an exceedingly uncomfortable position to listen to literature. Archie we shall not see until this evening. He will probably challenge me either to a race or a bear play. If neither invitation is accepted, he will then propose that I tell a pig story, or else read aloud from the Norse folk tales.
When reading these stories, there's lots of different versions of figurative and literal language. I'd like you to please take a moment to discuss with a partner which aspects of this is literature or figurative language. If it is non-figurative, please discuss why. If this language is figurative language, I would like you to explain the meaning of the figurative language. When you finish, you will have 2 minutes to discuss this and 10 minutes to decide on your question answers and to answer your questions. Go.